Jiro here for Umbra Games with a review of Overcooked, played on PlayStation 4, but also available on Xbox One and PC. As you probably know by now, I often keep an eye on indie games where they take the time and effort to produce a physical release. After watching a couple of game trailers and having a get-together on the horizon, Overcooked seemed just like a great party game. I was not wrong. Overcooked begins with the Peckish, the apocalyptic monster that rears his meatball head to destroy the world, unless he can be fed quickly. Upon failing at the task, the Onion King sends you back in time to drive your catering truck around the world and hone your cooking skills. You chop, sauté, and fry your way through the game's campaign, delivering meals as quickly as possible. While the game's premise is simple, you look to an order at the top, grab the appropriate ingredients from their boxes, prepare them and put them together on a clean plate and serve it, it actually gets complex fairly quickly. From sliding countertops to moving trucks to iceberg pathways, the game keeps it fresh, as well as providing definite moments of frustration. When you play the game solo, you control two chefs and flip between them using R1. You pick things up with the X button and perform actions on them with square. You can have up to 4 people at a time, but it takes great communication, and sometimes infinite levels of patience. I've played this game in 2 different local multiplayer scenarios now, including 4 of us at growing levels of intoxication, as well as with my wife, sister-in-law, and niece. And I'll keep my mouth shut on which was easier, but both were definitely more fun the more people you have to play. You unlock additional chefs as you proceed through the game so that people that care can customize, but apparel color is determined by your player number. Each order that appears on the screen has a countdown timer, from green to yellow then red, that determines the tip you receive upon delivery, $6, $4, and $2 respectively. You net $20 for every plate delivered, and each stage has target scores for 1, 2, and 3 ranking. Each new level has a minimum star requirement in order to open it, forcing you to replay and get better as you go along. Dishes start with soups that require 3 of a tomato, mushroom, or onion, and advance to pizzas where dough must be kneaded, cheese and tomato must be applied, as well as an often 4th ingredient, all the way to deep frying fish and chips. If you neglect an item when it's done cooking, it can catch fire, and that fire will spread 1 tile in each direction at a time until you put it out with the level's 1 extinguisher. Since the game is very grid-based in regards to counter space, for the most part it's easy enough to get items where they belong. Now, I'm not sure if it's a discouragement in just throwing food on the floor or not, but in some places counter space gets tight, and putting ingredients and their combinations on the ground just to hold them is the only method of completing that room. For some reason, letting go of the food is not always easy as it sounds, as it won't come out every time you hit the X button. Sometimes if you're too close to the counter, but press an action to swap it for the nearest item, which can be a bit frustrating, not receiving the same result every time you perform the same action. You almost need a drop button. When placing things in pots or pans, they will highlight white to aid you in your controls, but it's still just not always perfect, especially when the counter is moving. In some stages, leaving food on the floor where the counters do move, it can stretch and bend the item models, but picking them up restores it. Now, if you buy the physical copy of the game, it includes the Lost Morsel expansion pack with a few additional kitchens set in a prehistoric time with different kitchen arrangements, but serve the same food. Additional cooks can be unlocked here as well, and this content can be played at any time before or during the main game. You can also find a versus mode on its own set of unlockable maps, where 2 to 4 players can compete for the highest score. You know, if that anger reaches a level that needs a showdown to solve the question of who's the better chef. I was recently asked on how to best describe this game, and I didn't really have an answer. My first response is to put it in the party game genre, but there's definitely more of a serious cooperative tone instead of just a flurry of mini-games as is normal for the genre. I'm not really aware of any other console games similar to it, so I started looking into the reactions it elicits in we the players. The gameplay loop is actually very similar to that of something like Dr. Mario, where you find efficient ways to grab pieces to solve puzzles as quickly as possible, a subgenre I've deemed as frantic puzzle. The word puzzle is further exemplified in the necessary engineering of efficient solutions. So if you want a game with some fun, friendship-testing co-op, some decent challenge, sometimes slightly frustrating controls, diverse maps, and a continually fresh feel to gameplay, the entry fee for Overcooked is a great value. Rated as a frantic puzzle game, Overcooked lands at an 85 out of 100, with 50 being an average game. This is Jiro for Umbra Games. Thanks for watching. Cooking up new reviews weekly, subscribe to stay notified, or follow me on Twitter @Umbra Games.